What's up, my guys? What's up, my girls? AKA my dear and beloved Danny Flois. It's good to be with you one time for the 20 times. I'm your boy Danny Flo, your favorite podcast, vodcast teacher. I teach you things, a pronunciation that I stole from my lovely wife. Shout out to you, baby. So, I basically teach you by giving you, my guys and my girls, my philosophy of philosophy. I share philosophical thoughts with you, my philosophy of fitness. I share why I'm into fitness, my philosophy of family and fatherhood, and my philosophy on faith, which is that we should all be Catholic. And yes, I'm aware that I'm hella weird, but you like it. So in this episode, a lot of F sounding words, philosophy, fitness, family, faith. Yeah. In this episode, I'm gonna keep talking about whether an older girl should date a younger guy. I started talking about it last week. It's going to be a series of sorts because I think it's a great big question that we have a lot to consider, and so I don't want to throw everything at you at once. I want to give you my thoughts on this as much as I can think of. I want to give to you, that way if you're an older girl that is interested in a younger guy, you can kind of think about these things. Or if you're a younger guy that's interested in an older girl, you can think about these things as well. So, in this episode, I'm going to focus on the laws and the ethics, right? I'm not going to get into the technical and the mechanicals of the laws and the ethics, but just going to throw some things out there to consider. So, if an older girl wants to date a younger guy, first and foremost, I don't think that any laws should be broken. Now, it might be a little bit uncomfortable to talk about this, but we have had instances, in history where this has happened. So I live in the US. If you're 18, you're considered legally, right, an adult. If you're under 18, so if you're 17 or younger, you're still considered a minor. That's in the US. I can tell you, based on the information that I have, that most of my listeners and watchers are, in fact, in the US. The legal age someone is considered an adult varies by country, but let's just stick with 18 because that's what it is where I live, right? So the reason I say it's a little bit uncomfortable to think about is because if a younger guy is interested in an older girl and vice versa, when I talk about no laws should be broken, basically what that means is like an older girl is like interested in somebody in high school or something like that, and the way that they met doesn't necessarily have to be like in that school, right? And I'll tell you what I mean by that. They could have met just anywhere, technically an older girl that is interested in a younger guy could have met, at a place of employment for, at work, maybe the younger guy is working there part-time and she's older, she kind of works there full-time, things like that. But I think when we talk about older girls kind of dating younger guys, we kind of think of like high school, like a teacher-student relationship. So that's the other thing. I don't think any laws should be broken. And I guess before I move on to that, so I think if it gets to the point where you're considering, whether if for some reason an older girl finds, and it doesn't even have to be, technically someone that's an older girl that's like 19 shouldn't be, with respect to the laws, a girl that's 19 shouldn't be dating a guy that's 17, right? That's kind of like more realistic in regards to like them meeting, because they are around the same age. Just with respect to the law, one is considered a minor and one isn't. So let's start with that example. So if a girl's like 19 and the guy is 17, then if these two persons are really interested in each other, they have a lot in common, they have the same philosophy of dating, right? Because just because someone is on the younger side, right, we tend to think that someone that is 28, 29, 30 has a more mature philosophy of dating than someone that's 17, 18, 19. And I think generally that's true, but it could be that, for example, like the way that I'm going to raise my children is I'm going to teach them the philosophy that I've adopted on dating, which is that dating is to figure out whether this person is going to be your spouse or not, right? If it's not going to end there, if the person that you're dating doesn't see dating as ending in marriage, then right there's a difference in philosophy of dating, and it's not gonna go anywhere, right? Because I talked about this in a podcast episode previously when I talked about subjectivism. Most of the time, it's hard to convince someone to think like you. If you really think about it, the what you think is true, you've kind of convinced yourself of that through different ways. And so generally what happens is that's the same applies to other people. Other people kind of convince themselves to think the way that they think. Sometimes do you convince other people? Yes, of course. And the reason that I do this vodcast is I'm kind of making a bet that if I share my thoughts with you, my guys and my girls, I might convince one of you. So yeah, just because you're young doesn't mean that you won't have the same philosophy of dating. So what I'm gonna say is, like, if a girl is about 19 and a guy is like about 17, right? If you two kind of know that you're interested in each other and you don't think it's a big deal, like the thing about 17, 18, 19 year olds is that they want to be treated like adults, and they are adults. Just because a 17-year-old is not legally defined as an adult, he or she is still a young adult. And so if you want to be treated like an adult, fine, I'm going to treat you like an adult, and I'm going to tell you what I think is the truth, even if you don't want to hear it. Just because you don't think that law is important doesn't mean that you shouldn't follow it, especially if it's not unreasonable, and if it's not something that isn't going to eventually change. So where I'm going with this is, and I don't mean like that the law is going to change, but like your age is going to change, right? Relatively quickly. A year might seem like a long time, but a year is gonna is going to pass, right? Whether you feel it or not, whether you realize it or not. So if a guy is 17 and a girl is 19, if you guys really think that you're interested in each other, right, the mature thing to do, the adult thing to do, is just to follow the law, remain friends, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't hang out. Like, I wouldn't hang out alone, right? That's also another adult mature thing to do. But like, if you met at work, you'll still see each other at work. I guess you can still, text, maybe hang out with other friends, but that's another way that you can test whether you're really interested in this person or not. Like, am I willing to wait until I'm the legal age to pursue this relationship in a more serious way? So that's kind of my advice for an older girl that is like interested in a guy that's even like younger. So, but let's say the girl is like 29, right? And the guy is 17. Then you should definitely wait until that guy is at least and I think the older girl in the situation is going to realize this faster. Like, I think in a situation when a girl is like 19 and a guy is like 17, both of you kind of maybe not come to the same conclusion at the same time, like, oh, maybe this isn't the right thing to do, because the age difference is not that much, right? And again, I do think that you should wait, because then when, like, if you guys do decide to pursue the relationship, then you're doing it in the legal way, and then also you've waited and you know that this is actually something that you want to pursue, that it wasn't just something that you felt for a day or a week or a month or 6 months. It's been a year. I've been waiting, for me to be legally considered an adult, and I'm still interested in this older girl that's 20 now, right? And there's no problem with us dating, with respect to the law. Now, when there's a guy that's 17 and a girl that's 29, like, there's the real possibility that they like met at work, or they could meet in a number of ways. They could meet online, but when we think about it, we think of like, oh, that's like a teacher-student relationship, but it may not be. And I'll get to that in a second. But the girl that's 29 is going to realize way faster than the younger guy, like, oh, like, if we're interested in each other, like, he's not legally an adult. So she hopefully is kind of like the voice of reason, but the same kind of rule applies, especially because the age difference is like almost it's like 12 years in this example, right? And so maybe they have the same philosophy of dating. A girl that's 29, she could be ready to get married and have kids. A guy that's 17, just because he's 17 and doesn't have the same amount of accrued wisdom and experience and knowledge as like a girl that's 29, maybe he knows what he wants. Again, it could be dependent on how he was raised. Maybe he knows, I'm not gonna go to college right away. College is not for me. I've got a job lined up after high school. I wanna get married and have some kids. There's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing, especially if you've got like a plan like that. So, but there's a problem with the law, that if you were to date and things were to get serious, then you could get into some trouble. So, but I think the same applies in the sense that, like, so like the 17 and the 19-year-old that wait until the 17-year-old is 18, the same applies to like this situation. And like, waiting is more appropriate in the situation where the age difference is bigger, because again, you can test whether this is just something that whether this is something that's just shallow or something that's actually more of a deeper interest, right? Like, if a 17-year-old waits until he's 18, then by that time the girl in this example is like 30, right? And you can see like, okay, now I'm legally an adult. It's fine if I date her. Of course, there's going to be social stigmas attached to it, and that's going to be another part in this series where I talk about that. Right now, I just kind of want to talk about what is considered legally an adult and how waiting is a good thing, because you can test it. Like, like when the guy turns 18, maybe he realizes, because sometimes too, in my experience, and I think people are going to resonate with this, we like doing things that we're not allowed to do legally or otherwise. And so it could be that, you're interested in a younger guy, you're interested in an older girl, and just the mere fact that it's illegal, right, makes it more exciting, and the temptation to like do it in spite of the fact that it's illegal, that's there. And I think we should be honest about that. But then when you remove that, is that interest still there? Is this someone that I see myself dating in order to see if it will lead to marriage? And again, just because you're a young guy doesn't mean that you're not thinking about marriage. So definitely, I think the bigger the age difference, right, then the more reason to wait until that young guy is legally an adult. That way no laws are broken, right? And that way you can test with time to see if there's a real interest, or if it's just kind of something exciting because it's, legally forbidden. And you have to remember too, like, if it'll be more stable in both cases if a guy is like 17 interested in a 19-year-old girl and vice versa, or if a guy is 17 interested in a 29-year-old girl and vice versa. Let's say you wait until that 17. In both cases, when you wait until that guy is an adult, you were already willing to wait. You were already willing to sacrifice kind of being alone in that sense, and not like dating or taking anyone else seriously. So the relationship is going to start like more stable once the guy is legally an adult. And then just because you date, so you already know that you guys are serious about it. If you waited to do it the right way with respect to the law, it'll be more stable in that way. And then remember, like, dating, it also takes time, right? And so you'll still have time to kind of figure out if that's what you like want to do, if that's how you like want to date. Now, there could be the case as well. So, I'm talking about kind of like that's kind of like the law part, right? Now let's kind of like talk about ethics, because just because something is legal doesn't mean that it's ethical, and vice versa, right? We debate this stuff all the time. Sometimes we want to get rid of a law because we think it's unethical. Sometimes we want to put a law into place because we think it's the ethical thing to do. So where I want to go with ethics is like, not in every case, right? I think at least I'm going to be honest, that's kind of like where my mind goes when I think about an older girl dating a younger guy. I think of like an older, like a teacher dating like one of her students, whether that's high school or whether in university. Now that's kind of why, but it could be, like I said, that they met at work, they met online, they met somewhere, right? And obviously, like, everyone is online these days, so it's like you meet people where they could meet at the gym, for example. Technically, they could meet at church, they could meet anywhere, but I think that's where I'm talking about myself, that's where my mind goes. So that's kind of why I addressed that. But it could be, right, that it actually could be that the younger guy is the older girl's student, especially at like a university, for example. So that's kind of why I want to talk about ethics. If an older girl is interested in a younger guy and that guy happens to be like her student, I don't think that's a good idea. And I think I'm not an expert in university policies. I think different universities have different policies about this. For example, some universities have a policy against this. Some universities, maybe they don't care, right? And some universities, maybe there has to be some sort of documentation so that, everyone involved is kind of protected, that everyone is kind of aware of what's going on and everyone is protected. I think independent of whether the university has a specific policy about this, it's not a good idea, because if you're trying to date someone, that puts a romantic context on it. And if the younger guy is the older girl's student, then it's just hard to separate that, right? Can it be done? Yes, but I think we need to operate it as if we're the rule, not the exception. I think in exceptional, I think it's rare where that would be able to happen. And we have to realize too that relationships are hard enough, right, without all of these obstacles. And so I think if Like because in the example that I'm giving, like maybe this might be at a university, a guy that's 18, 19, 20, 21, something like that, could catch or could get feelings for an older girl at a university that's maybe 28, 29, 30, 31, whatever, and it might be her teacher. So like there's kind of like, it's kind of like the same test. Like, why don't you wait until that woman is not your teacher anymore, right? Why don't you wait until that guy is not your student anymore and then date, right? Because then you have the same like test. Like, if you give it time, you'll realize whether this is actually something that you want to do, or if it's just something that's exciting and something that you kind of want to do because it's forbidden. And it's like, we need to realize that, like, if we're really interested in someone, like from the beginning, we need to make sacrifices, and that goes whether you're the same age as a person or not. Like, I kind of talked about this two episodes ago when I kind of gave advice to my girls about what kind of guy that they should date. Like, a guy from the beginning should make it clear that he wants to talk to you, right, and take you on dates. That way he can kind of figure out, and you can kind of figure out with him, if you guys should actually date, be boyfriend and girlfriend. And then from there, you know, eventually it matures into engagement and marriage and stuff like that. So from the beginning, we're making sacrifice. We should be making sacrifices, because it's like, a guy should, if he wants to talk to you, he should sacrifice talking to other girls, right? Like, I am going to focus on whether this is going to work, and then if this doesn't work, then I don't have to make that sacrifice anymore. I can kind of, you know, maybe not date for a while, maybe keep dating, try with another girl, but then I date that girl and sacrifice talking and dating to other girls. So being in romantic relationships, right, as men and women, we make sacrifices from the beginning. And it's actually when we're not willing to make those sacrifices, that we kind of see that a person isn't like taking us serious. So if a younger guy and an older girl are interested in each other and they have like a teacher-student relationship, you should just wait till that relationship has terminated. Like, make that sacrifice of like waiting, because again, then when you actually have that relationship, when you start pursuing that relationship in a more serious way, it'll be more stable, and you'll see like this person was willing to wait until we no longer had that obstacle, right? You'll like have more respect for that person. You'll take that person more seriously. So then it could also be, right, that an older girl is the younger guy's boss, right? Like maybe a guy that's like 22, 23, 24, his boss is a girl and she's, you know, 32, 33, 34, something like that. They're both single, they're interested in each other, right? And again, just like universities, different workplaces have different like ethical policies or whatever. Some places might not care, people can do whatever they want. Some places might forbid it. You can't date a superior can't date an inferior, and vice versa. Or some places might just require some sort of documentation, again, so that everyone is protected legally, you know, the company, the boss, the employee, right? And again, independent of all the, whether, you know, what kind of policies these workplaces have where this might happen, I don't think it's a good idea. And like, so in a student-teacher kind of relationship, I think it would be hard to kind of transfer schools. So like, it would be hard to kind of transfer schools just because you want to date a teacher at a different university. So like, I think it would be kind of tough to wait it out, because like, let's say as an older girl, you meet a freshman in college that you're interested. He might be 18, 19 or whatever, and let's say he does everything perfectly to graduate on time. It takes like 4 years to graduate, so by the time he graduates, it's been 4 years. But if y'all were to wait, then you would know that there's an interest. You know, 4 years have passed and I'm still thinking about, you know, how great it would be to see if this would work out between us, right? It would be tough for that freshman just to like especially because like a lot of times, and we'll talk about parents. I've mentioned social stigmas and parents. Those are two things that I'm going to talk about in future episodes. So, but I just bring up parents right now because an 19-year-old guy, his parents might be paying for his education for all we know, and it would be really weird, and I'll have to get in this in a future episode, if like he just goes to his parents and is like, Mom, I gotta switch schools because I think I'm, romantically interested in my teacher who's an older girl. I don't want to get her in trouble, and so I want to transfer schools so that maybe I can date her right now since we're not at the same school, or I just can go to a different school and not think about it and just focus on my studies, and then after I graduate, if she's still available, then like we can see what happens then. That would be really tough. I think the best thing to do would probably be just wait it out, graduate, but you would kind of have to avoid each other. But again, like, what are you willing to do to kind of test this to see if this is actually something that you really want? Because again, and this goes for both guys and girls that are in the late teens, early 20s. A lot of people I know I used to be in my late teens and my early 20s. I'm in my late 20s now, right? But I wanted to be treated like an adult. I know y'all want to be tweeted, right? You do want to be tweeted at if you're on Twitter, but you want to be treated like an adult. And so that's what I'm trying to do. The adult thing to do is just wait it out to see if there's something real there, because like I said, relationships are hard enough. If you jump into a relationship as an older girl and a younger guy, where relationships are already hard enough, plus you have a legal obstacle, plus you have an ethical obstacle, plus you have a social obstacle, plus you have the obstacle of the parents. We're going to get into the other two that I mentioned in a different episode. This episode is long enough. Then it's just going to be even harder, and there's still other things to consider as well. But so going to what I was actually talking about, if there's a boss employee, like superior inferior kind of thing, I actually think it would be easier to just maybe find a different job. Like that's what I'm saying. Like if you really think you're interested in someone, right? There's nothing more. There's like, it might seem kind of dumb that I'm talking about dating, especially like what kind of guy a girl should date, or should an older girl date a younger guy, but we're talking about spending. There's like nothing more. It seems like a dumb question, like on the surface, but like when you really think about it, why do we have friends? Because we like having like relationships with people, and then there's degrees of relationship, and like the most important degree of relationship is like, who is going to be my spouse? Like that's the person that's going to know me better than anyone. That's the person that's going to hopefully help me become the person that I want to be, the person that I'm meant to be. That's the person that hopefully I'll grow old with. That's the person that I'm going to make other persons with. This is like a big deal, which is why I'm talking about it. And so it's not silly that if like a younger girl is like a younger girl is interested in a younger guy, and it happens to be her like inferior as a like her direct report, like her employee, like if they really want to like pursue that relationship, it's legal, right? It might be unethical because they work at the same company or something, and like even if they just like the place just requires some sort of paperwork filled out or whatever, like being in that kind of relationship where like the person you're dating is your boss, or you're their employee, or you're the boss or whatever, like that's gonna cause stress on the relationship, because when you're in the workplace, like you have to I have a hard time pronouncing that word, so I'm not gonna try to pronounce it. But like your focus is like to do what's best for the company and your like job. Now, of course, I also don't think any like laws and ethics should be broken to do what's best for the company and your job. But that's like your focus at like the workplace, and so that's going to add a stress on the relationship. So it's not silly to look for a different job if you're interested in someone, if you're a younger guy that's interested in an older girl and she happens to be your boss, because like in the examples that I'm giving, she might be the boss because she's had a longer time to get to the position somewhere that she wants. It's not silly, because then you don't have that ethical stress, right, on the relationship, and you don't have that like boss employee stress in the relationship either. And I think that that's all I can think of in regards to like the laws and ethics of it. So like, yeah, if an older girl is like interested in a younger guy, and they don't have like a boss employee relationship, and they don't have like a teacher student relationship, then it just comes down to, do you have the same philosophy of dating? Again, an older girl, you know, I discussed this in my last episode, but if she wants to get married and have kids, she's a little bit more in a hurry, because women are only so fertile throughout their lives. They're not fertile the entire time that they're alive, as opposed to like men. So men, in a sense, don't have that hurry, and so you have to have that same philosophy of dating. I hope that makes sense, right? The first part last week was about how I was going to break this up into multiple episodes, how it was going to be philosophical and about family and about faith. Why I'm talking about it, go listen to that episode if you want to kind of figure that out. And I'm actually drawing a blank, so maybe I need to listen to my own episode. But this episode was about kind of the laws and the ethics to consider, and how if you wait until you don't have those obstacles, that is kind of like a test of whether you really are interested in each other, and then it'll be more stable when you actually try to pursue it. And then if it doesn't work out, then you don't blame, well, like, the only reason that it didn't work out was because, you know, I wasn't legally considered an adult, or the only reason that it didn't work out is because we were breaking these ethical policies at the university we were at, or these ethical policies at the job we were at. Like, no, you can say it didn't work out because maybe we realized we didn't have the same philosophy of dating. We realized we didn't have the same morals. We realized right? It'll be for a legitimate reason, as opposed to like these obstacles that you weren't willing to wait and remove for whatever reason, which, like, there is no reason not to wait in this case. In the case of whether with respect to the law and to like ethics and stuff like that, it's better to wait. Cool. So let me know what you think, my guys and my girls. How do you do that? That's a great question. Send me a DM on the gram bam at Dani_flow, DANI_FLO. Comment below if you're watching on YouTube. Send me a snap. If you've added me on Snappity Chat, send me a voice message on Anchor. The link to do that is below. However you, my guys and my girls, want. If you're watching your boy on YouTube, thank you for watching. Please like and share the link to my vodcast so you can help me grow my channel. If you're watching and aren't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe, and let me know in the comments below how you found me and why you subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thanks for listening, not listening. Thanks for listening. Please share the link to my podcast so you can help me grow my listenership, and leave a review if you feel like doing something cool for your boy. Link to support the Dani Flow vodcast financially is below. Please consider it if my vodcast is something cool in your life. If not, that's cool. Keep listening and share my vodcast with your bestie, your nextie bestie, and your fam bam, and on your story on the gram if you feel like doing something cool with your boy. Thanks for putting up with me, my guys and my girls. I'm aware that I'm hella weird, but you like it. So let me know what you think. We're a fan of thinking here on the Dani Flow podcast. We like thinking here on the Dani Flow podcast. And so, as always, my dear and beloved Dani Flowis, remember what servant of God, Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen, taught us: your life is worth living. Love you, my guys and my girls. Bye.